time, let's get into begin with the end in mind. I'm sure that this topic is going to be a very familiar one if you have read Stephen Covey's book called The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. This is actually this habits two, in which he talks about to see the bigger picture. So I would like to start this with a story. Uh, I'm sure if you, I'm not sure how many of you have actually heard the story of a blue fox. Well, the story goes like this. One day, the blue fox was hunting for its meal in a nearby village. So he was looking for hens, it was looking for roosters, anything that actually can grab his attention and make sure that he is stomach full. But unfortunately, that night, he fell into a tank that was filled with paint and that was blue in color. So when he came out, he didn't know there was any change in him until and unless when the other animals actually started seeing him. So when the other animals started seeing him, they thought he was an alien. He was a different kind of an animal. It's a blue thing. It's a fox. And so the animals asked him who he is. And out of the blue, he said, I'm the king. I'm a king from a very far away land. And the animals were got so excited. The king was no more the ruler at that point of time. The animals started giving him all the food, the drinks that he wanted. It made sure that the fox is treated like a king. That is the time when one night he was standing alone near his cave, trying to be or acting as if he's in deep meditation. He heard a lot of foxes howling, and he couldn't, keep it with himself. He started howling too. That's when the animal realized this is just another joker fox who's actually trying to imitate or taking advantage of the situation to for better of it. So the animals started attacking him. He couldn't go to the village because by the time he got to the village, he was already ripped by the other animals in the forest. So what basically the story tells is, do not get into anything until and unless you see the bigger picture. So that's where I wanted to start with, begin with the end in mind. So when I say begin with the end in mind, I'm sure it's easy to see the bigger picture. Easier said than done, right? When I say see the bigger picture, I'm not asking you to understand the whole thing. I'm asking you to see the outcome. What is the end outcome that you actually require in terms of the activity that you're doing? Whatever it is. Let's start seeing the final outcome that you're looking at and start working your way backwards. This is one way that you can actually think in order to see what are the things that you wanted to do before that and the one before that, so that you will not miss out on the minute details that you have within the program. So when you actually see the bigger picture, you know this activity is leading to an X outcome. So what is the Y? What is before that? What, and how do you get all the way back to an A? So you're thinking your steps, tracking your steps backwards. Now, when you start doing that, the first thing is how do you prepare? Now, let's look at what is the outcome that you're looking for. Imagine that you wanted to start buying a new car. Now, now this is not an activity. I'm looking at the outcome. Now, you are actually in the showroom trying to pick the brand that you have chosen, the car that you have finalized, everything. Now, the one before is which car to buy. Now, one before that would be what is your budget. So there's a process in everything. You look at the final outcome of you owning a Mercedes or something, and what is the process before that? You have to understand that is the Mercedes that you wanted to buy. Now, would the Mercedes fit in the budget? Is the question before that. So like that, you're actually tracking your entire movement. So in order to summarize on this is what is the outcome that you anticipate for a particular project or task that you do. So I'm sure that all of you in offices on a daily basis are doing many different tasks, multitasking, understanding what is the outcome of each of these tasks, what is that you're looking for, and all that, and the outcome that you anticipate on that particular task is what I'm asking you to first picturize. Then you step the work, you step before that task, and the ones before. And finally, once you have all the information that you have in order to understand what is the outcome, then you start talking about who are the stakeholders of this project, or what are the stakeholders of this particular task that you're doing. Where can I get information that I require? Do you have all the information in your hand? Who can I contact for assistance? Are you sure that you're going to get assistance? Say, for example, if you're within the tax team or the talent acquisition team within an office, uh, imagine that you want to fill out a post. There's a requirement that has come in. Now, the JDs, the resumes that you have to get, are you going to be single-handedly doing all this, or do you going to get any assistance from any of your associates or peers? What if no one helps? So you are basically making sure when you're thinking it backwards, you're making sure that every angle is actually covered before you actually do a particular task. But of course, you do not have much time in order to get all this done in backwards. But at the same time, when you actually move backwards, you will see you will taking less time than you're actually moving forward with the task. So you know the outcome and you're working backwards. But if you're actually going frontwards, if you're getting the requirement, then whom should I contact? Where do I get everything? All those, if you're working your way front, you will see the X amount of time is taken. But if you're actually working backwards, you will see it as X minus Y that you're gonna take. Now, everything, all your decisions are based on your emotions. Everything. Any emotion that you take, any decision that you take are based on your emotions. So when I say this, let me give you an example. If you're feeling really happy, one day you wanted to take a stroll in the park, uh, but at the same time, during a childhood or any other time that you have been chased by a dog as a child in the very same park, you may not take that route. You might probably take a bus instead, even though you're happy. And different emotions affect different decisions in different ways. For example, if you're feeling sad, you might be willing to settle for things that aren't in your favor, such as putting yourself forward for a promotion or remaining in an unhealthy relationship. But sometimes sadness at the same time. You should never confuse your emotion of sadness and frustration together, because sadness can make you more generous. Now, a research by the Harvard University shows that unhappy people are more likely to be in favor of increasing benefits towards an angry people who are lacking in empathy. When you're sad, you might probably give in to a person who is angry at the same time. Now, emotions can affect any nature of decision, but the speed at which you make it is where we say always say never make a hasty decisions when you're angry. Angry can lead to impatience, rash decision making. If you're excited at the same time, you might make a quick decision without considering the implications as you surf the wave of confidence and optimism about the future. While if you feel afraid, your decision may be clouded by uncertainty and caution. It might take you for longer to choose. What all this means is your gut feeling plays a major role in your decision making process. That's what I'm trying to tell you. All these is based on your your gut decision. But at the same time, but at times may be steering you wrong. It might lead to poor judgment, unconscious biases, and reckless or risk aversion. But there are occasions where we should pay attention to your gut instinct. So with that, let me talk about the emotional story. This is the front cover of my book, The Golden Touch. And that's what I've used for this story, the Midas stitch. I'm sure that all of you have heard this story. Midas is a king who wanted to have the more wealthiest, known to be the wealthiest king alive, sorry, who was alive. He wanted to be known like that. So one day when the god appeared in front of him, the god asked him, what is the wish that you wanted? He said, I want whatever I touch to be turned into gold. And that time onward, whatever he touches started turning into gold. The rice, he was not able to eat food because the minute he touched the bowl of rice, it started becoming to gold. He was not able to place anything. The minute he touched his hand on something, it turned into gold. He's not able to enjoy the flower because the minute he takes that flower, it turns into gold. That's the time when his lovely daughter, who came running and tried to hug him, and he hugged her back, and she also turned into gold. So sometimes, even when you're happy, you know this is something that you want. At that point of time, you take a decision. Sometimes that also can go wrong. But at the same time, if you actually go with your gut instinct, certain times it may be backfired as well. So there are four different facts that affects your decision based on your focus area. The first one is your security. The second one is the guidance. The third one is power. The fourth one is wisdom. We would look each of these into detail as we go by, but at this point of time, let me stop and let me see if there are any questions before I actually continue.
I think Hari, we can continue. I guess there's no question. Is there any questions to Hari so far?
Nope. All right. So let's get dwell into the details of these. Let's look at the first one, the security. What security represents are your self-esteem. This is your identity, your basic personal strength or lack thereof. So I'm sure that as HR professionals, there are a lot of times that you might have asked this question. Tell me something about your strengths and weaknesses, right? Now, at this time point juncture, a candidate is probably looking at into the security aspect of his self-esteem while trying to answer this question. At the same time, he also wanted to be guided by his experience. So when I say security, that represents the self-esteem. So there are certain times that when you want to buy certain things, when you're a self-centered person or you're a money-minded person or a spouse-centered person, all this is taken into consideration. All these four items plays a different role how you actually move in your decision making process. So what we'll do is we will look each of this in detail first, then we will go into each of the examples of how each of the centered people behave in each of these separate items. So the second one is guidance. The guidance is the direction in your life. This would be the principles and standards by which you make your decisions. So all the principles that and standards that you have, you've been working on the attitude, the way that you have grown up, all these are your first step of approach in any of the decision making process while you're actually making a decision. The third one is power. Power is the capability to act. Now, in certain situations that requires a solution, you're looking at a problem and you need a solution. All this is basically you go back into the situations where you have that experience before. You had to create new ideas. You're basically the kind of person who likes to think out of the hat, but sometimes end up in the same kind of experience that actually pulling you back. But you still try to force yourself, break free out of that, and gets into that situation where there are unclear circumstances, but at the same time, you're thinking out of the box to make sure that you wanted to get into that power and make sure that you find that solution for each and every problem or a task that is actually put forward in front of you. Next is wisdom. Wisdom is just a clear perspective in life. It is your sense of balance in life and your understanding of the relationship between different issues. You know, these are your experiences that have given you this wisdom. You've been walking down the path for a long time. So your experience that you have, along with the experiences that you have gathered, the stories that you've heard, the experiences that you have heard from other colleagues or friends. So all of this is combined as your wisdom that you have, along with, of course, your general knowledge, the news that you hear. Everything is combined over here. And when you're taking a decision, probably this also is something that you would be looking into. As I said, let's look into each of the different examples, how this is actually affecting your decision making process. Let's look at if you're a money centered person, everything is around money. So your security decision is your personal worth is determined by your net worth. That's your security. Your money is your security. The guidance would be your profit and loss statements in your decision making guidance. The wisdom is the money making in the lens through which the seen and understood. So what is the lens that you, what is the wisdom that you have gathered all over the years is what you're looking at only from a money making process. The fourth is your vision is limited so that you're restricted to what you can achieve or accomplish with your money. So everything is on money. So your decision is on money. So based on this amount is what I want to know. So you wanted to be the richest person alive. So your personal worth is determined by your net worth. So I want my children, my grandchildren, the children for or their children, everybody I need to be protected because that is the reputation that I have to keep. Now imagine if you're a work-centered guy, people call you a workaholic, but the actual workaholic security is the comfortable that you're working. Define yourself by your occupational self. So even at home, your spouse or your parents might call you, please leave your laptop and come have food. Nothing is going to happen. The world is not going to fall. Your office is not going to break. But your decision at that point of time is only on the work. What is going to happen? What if I don't give this on time? What is my boss going to think? What is my associates going to think? You make a decision based on the needs and expectations of your work, and that's your guidance. Your KRAs, your objectives, all your decisions are based on the need and expectations of the work. It's not, you're not coming out to check what else can I actually look for guidance in order to go ahead and create that kind of an atmosphere for me to work. You see work as your life. That's your wisdom because that's the kind of experience that you might have gone through. Probably you might have seen your dad as a workaholic or a mom as a workaholic as you're growing up. Or probably you might have set your idol person, a person that you wanted to worship so much, who is always on work. So probably Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, you're hearing only about their work. So that's the kind of person that you might have kept as an idol. And your power would be your actions are limited to the opportunities, the work role models, your boss's perception, the possibility, the possible inability at some point to complete a particular task. So all these are other things that's going to be the power that you seek when you're creating a decision making process if you're a work centered person. Now, if you're a position centered person, your security is based on your reputation. You make your decisions based on what that will protect, increase, or better your position. When I say position, it's again very closely related to the money centered. The money centered person talks about the money being in the bank so that he can enjoy the riches on a later time, while a position centered person is the kind of person who actually states that though he has money. Yeah, was that a question? Okay, no, all right. So the position centered person are the kind of people who wants to have that money at the same time he wants to show that he has a lot of things like a brand new car, a big mansion, things like that. You see the whole world in terms of a comparative economic and social relationship. So his wisdom probably he might have heard the experiences that we have gathered again. And for a position centered person is the world is comparative. Everything he is able to he is comparing. Okay, I have a Mercedes, he has only an Audi. Uh, okay, I have a 5 bedroom house while the other person is having only a 3 bedroom house. So all these are the mental things that's actually making him happy to stay. All right, I'm staying away, I'm being here, I'm still better than him. But this kind of person, and all these kind of people that I'm talking about, are the people when they actually meet the opposite kind of a person. Say for a person who's completely a workaholic, who sees another person who's doing his job, a day-to-day job, and at the same time he is not a workaholic person. He is spending time with his family. He's not even bothered to open his laptop or check his mails on weekends. So both these kind of a people will have a rough and tough attitude towards a work atmosphere. They will try to impose a lot of things on them, saying that this is something that task that you want to we have to complete by the end of the week. The timeline that you give to the other person, from a work-centered person to a person who sees as an opposite, would be much less than compared to the actual time that he has in his hand. So these are the kind of people that you need to understand how to work with. That is the benefit when you actually understand the kind of person that you're working with, the kind of person that you are interacting with, the kind of interpersonal skills that you are developing in order to mingle with these kind of people, that gives you the upper hand in order to judge, okay, this is a money-centered person, this is a position-centered person, this is a pleasure-centered person. So this is how I need to fine-tune my discussions with him so that it would actually help me in order to get into his good books and make sure that I can also lead a balanced life along with him in this relationship. So a pleasure-centered person, you feel secure when you're on a pleasure high, whatever that is. It can be drugs, it can be staying in a five-star hotel, it can be a trip to Hawaii. They will be also able to make a decision on what you will give the most pleasure on. So if you're a tour agent and you want to sell something to this kind of people, you talk about the pleasure that he is going to achieve in terms of what kind of a thing that he wants. So you will understand from his discussion itself. Uh, I want when I'm traveling, I want a five-star hotel. I want this, I want that. He would be everything on the pleasure that he is looking, and at the same time, he's looking at the things that he can get the maximum pleasure on. And these kind of people see the world as in what's in it for them. It's what's in it for you, what's in it for me on this. So if I have to give you 100 rupees, what is that worth that I'm getting for 100 rupees? Now the power is almost negligible here because at the same time, all decision making are based on the pleasure that he has. Now, this is one thing that I've kept so that I'm sure that everybody would be able to relate to it. This is one being a spouse-centered person. Irrespective of the gender that you are, irrespective of the kind of person that you are, I'm sure that somewhere down the line, somewhere during your experiences, you might have encountered a person who's completely spouse-centered. Now, their feeling of security are based on the way your spouse treats you. Now, if you are a spouse-centered person, if I'm at home, did you eat? Did you have chai? Did you have a biscuit? So everything, that's a security. Okay, okay, okay. And the direction comes from what your own needs, wants, and those of the spouse. So, okay, I have to make her happy. I have to make him happy. What do I do? That's your guidance. You tend to always consult with friends and for spouses before you have any judgments based on your experience. Okay, I have had this kind of experience before, but it's better that I consult with my better half or my spouse or my friends in order to get more knowledge on this particular area, and usually gives up to the spouse. Whatever you do, whatever kind of arguments or frustrations you throw around, at anything at the end of the day, you give it to your spouse. You gives it up. Okay, whatever you say is right, honey. That's it. So these are the different kinds of different centered people who are there in, and there are more. There are money centered, work centered, the position centered. There are more people like I who looks into the others' life, not just his life. Okay, they would be happy. I want to be like him. How do I do that? That's the kind of person who always looks into someone else. If he sees today, if I'm, say, for example, if it's Ambani today, I want to be like him. And tomorrow he hears about Steve Jobs. Okay, how do I go about that? They keep changing directions. So these kind of people are very hard to come back to put into each of this category. So when you're, the reason why we have to do this is so when tomorrow when you have to begin with an end in mind is basically to understand the kind of people when it comes to relate to any job that you're doing. When you're having a discussion, if you understand the kind of a person that you're dealing with, you know how to tweak your conversations also into these kind of people's mindset so that you would be able to tweak and get their approvals far better and far more, and they these you two becomes more approachable to each other. You adapt to that situation quick. So let me take a pause again here to ask if you have any questions.
Rashmi, would you like to? Yeah, if you have any questions, probably you can ask.
Yes. So one question is there, Hari. So how do I understand my boss is money centered?
Very good question. So you would know your boss is money centered when you would see he's talking about his riches. So you would see when someone's asking, "Did you get a new car?" Yes, I bought it with. So let me put it this way: have you seen this movie called Three Idiots?
Yes, yes,
Yes. Yeah. Have you seen that in which the Karina is going to get married to a person? He puts a
yes,
money to everything that he talks about. He puts a
Yeah.
value to everything. He puts a value to the relationship. He put value to a possession a thing that he owns. So he put a value to everything. Did you get a new phone? Yes, it was a pre-ordered phone for 300 rupees extra. I had to pay for the delivery. So you would understand these are the kind of people who always have put to a money-centered person. They are the people who actually talks about money a lot.
yes. Thank you, Hari.
Okay. Any other
Any other?
question?
Hey, what about pleasure? I understand, you were mentioning an example of pleasure centered also, but
Hmm.
in a typical office environment, you know,
Okay.
talking to my boss, how do I know it's a pleasure center? Is there something if I have to convince him for something? Any
Mhm.
examples or anything you'd like to highlight?
I don't have examples at this point of time, but I can tell you how if he's a pleasure-centered person. So, for example, let me say if your boss has just come back from a vacation, okay, and you're talking to him about the vacation, and he keeps talking about the pleasures he had. For example, the hotel was so great, the hotel was expensive. At the same time, they had all the facilities that actually they cared for me. They gave me that smile that I always wanted. It was really relaxing. He's a pleasure centered person. And at the same time, when you talk to him, he would also say, "Give me a break. Let me have a tea and come back. Let me calm my mind and come back. I'm completely occupied right now. I'm not able to think, but let me have something and get back to the sea." So these are the kind of cues that you give. He's a pleasure-centered person, but at the same time, he's a workaholic too. So now there's a mix. You have a pleasure-centered workaholic. So you need to play around and tweak a lot in terms of your conversation in order to make sure that he actually is rolling with you.
Thank you, Hari.
You're welcome.
Uh,
Any other question?
can I ask a question directly?
Sure, go ahead.
Hari, this is Jerry from VKC Group. I am manager HR for VKC Group of companies.
Mhm.
So my question is, as HR professionals, we are linking diversity and inclusion. Specifically, my question is regarding diversity. So diversity is something which we are proponents of. So we as HR professionals require teams to be diverse in nature. So as per your
Correct.
theory, uh,
Mhm.
do you like to have one particular pivot centric team, or do you want to have all these people like money centric, work centric, position centric, everybody to be in part of the team? Which way does it work?
Absolutely. So every human being, let me put it this way, every human being is different. So I may be a money-centered person, somebody else may be a spouse-centered person. You won't be able to understand the kind of person until and unless you actually work with him for some time. You stay in let me put it this way, in an interview atmosphere, the questions are there, the answers are there, and you're expecting certain keywords when the actual interview is happening. Okay, for example, if you're talking about a soft skill trainer, you're talking about what is his AHT, how is his training data, his other relevant details that you are looking for, keywords that he knows what he's talking about. But at the same time, the reaction might be completely unfounded sometimes when these are the keywords that you expect is not coming out from it, right? So there are chances that he might get rejected, or you might tweak your questions in order to understand and make sure that he gets it. But at the same time, it's very uh, what do you say? It is not possible to have one kind of a person throughout in the team, as every human being is different. Certain being will be completely money centered. Somebody won't be. Sometimes there are people that is not even bothered about what's happening in the background. They just wanted to, finish what they're doing and get back home. They're not even money centered. They're not work centered. They're not position centered. And these are the kind of people who are pleasure centered. So you would be able to understand in a team uh, as you said, you wanted to have a diversified and the team. That's how it works. As every human being are different, you will not get one kind of a person there. You won't get a workaholic person everywhere. If you get a workaholic person everywhere, the productivity of the company has to be so high that everything has to be on a first time right. So the diversifying nature is always there in every term. It's not just the human beings, it's the kind of people that you interact with, your friends, your family. Nobody sees eye to eye for every single matter. You would be able to judge it from the kind of people that you've been around with since your childhood. Would be able to see eye to eye for everything that you do. Did I answer your question, or am I still putting you in a vaguely shaped way?
Yeah, you have put things in perspective. So one more thing which if you could clarify is, so in such cases, you also agree to the fact that teams are going to be diverse. So in
Mhm.
that case, what are the challenges? There would definitely be challenges as a manager. So is there any particular strategy as per your theory that we can circumvent this crisis?
Sure. So let me understand your question perfectly. So you're asking me if there are people from different areas or different centered people in the team, how does the manager make sure that his work gets done with these kind of people? Did I
Yes,
get that
spot
right?
on, spot on. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Okay. So as a manager, the first thing is to understand your team. So in order to understand the team, I'm sure the manager also needs to go on. The first time managers would be having a major challenge than the experienced managers. The experienced managers would know when they talk to them, they may not be able to understand from this theory alone, whether he's money centered or a work centered person, but he would be able to pinpoint on their weaknesses rather than on the positive area. This is how that is going to take him to work. This is what is going to take him to work. At this point of time, this thickness would be certain times. Okay, let me put it this way. If you actually ask a manager to pinpoint on the weaknesses of his employees, he would be able to pinpoint on the weaknesses of his employees. He won't be knowing that he's a money centered person, but he's actually tickling on the area where he's actually interested on. This comes from experience. The second is the if you're able to work here, and I'm able to get the promotion that been been stuck for a long time, maybe years. That's the kind of work area that his other person is speaking on. Now, here in terms of the these examples here, the money centered, that particular manager may not know that he's tickling on a person who's actually work centered. He is just tickling on the area of his weaknesses where his weakness is actually work. Did I make myself clear?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Now, just to add on to the bit for the earlier question, how would the manager know where to tickle? Is also a question that I thought people might ask. But as the people haven't asked that question, let me put it myself there and say, how do you know where to tickle? Now, the question comes from uh, the experience of managers. Now, if it's a first-time manager, you need to have a mentorship program in order to make sure that he's actually getting the wisdom from the people who has experienced the area of expertise that they're talking about. If the people are not around him to guide him, is where the manager fails as a manager in the long run. Now, the experienced person who has actually developing the skills on his own, going through different various forums, going understanding and talking to maybe different other people, talking to his boss, understanding where the pinch is and how to tickle and how to get that guidance, how to mentor certain people. Now, the challenge of a manager is always to bring the entire team up the learning curve and make sure that everybody performs at the same standard as a person who's on the top line of performance. Now, that's the challenge that each manager has in front of them to make sure that they lift everybody and make sure that they all perform at the highest standards. But at the same time, it is very difficult for a person who's come in and who's be having a different issues like a will issue and a skill issue to make him push him up and uh, make him perform at a certain area. At the same time, there would be a person who is self-motivated, who would be just jumping into every situation and making sure that he performs it without being the manager be able to tell him that this is where you need to perform. Probably he would be performing much higher than that of that person. So a manager's area is to bridge this gap through by making sure they have constant conversation with these people who are at least on the bottom quartile or on the mediocre quartile, and they have to probably sit with them to help them to understand where they are going wrong and what they need to do extra in order to get there. Now, even after that, if the person is not doing it, then is where the entire tweaking needs to come in and where the HR needs to play a major role in order to understand what exactly is bothering you. Did I make myself more clear or did I confuse you?
Perfect, perfect, Hari.
Okay.
Any other questions from the participants?
Hari, this is Sridhar.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah,
So,
I'm here.
talking about all these centers, right?
Mhm.
There's some
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear
major role
you.
here.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question completely. It broke somewhere.
You said you've talked about the various centers, right?
Yes.
Various centers, various. Okay, is there anything on the competency? Okay, which is going to get really, attached to all these things? See, you have said all these things are the various, differentiated activities done by any individual, as you
Correct.
said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we also have competencies.
Mm-hmm.
So how do
Absolutely.
you relate competencies here?
Okay, now the competency here is the skill in which that person is supposed to work. For example, if I am as a software or a soft skill developer or I'm as a talent developer, there are X number of competencies that I need to fulfill in order to work in a level that my manager expects me to work. Now, these competencies are derived from the based on the job descriptions that I have, and this is what the entire competency talks about. Now, basically, the competency is basically the skill that is required. Now, here I'm talking about what is going to take him to work in a way that he's supposed to work, where the skill has absolutely no relation to what all these centered kind of people. Now, the skill is something that only with interest that would come. So, for example, if it's a money centered person, he wants to make money. So, in order to make money, the first thing that he needs to know if he wants to invest in a money market or invest in certain shares, he needs to understand what that is. Now, until and unless he shows interest to understand what that is, the skill is not going to come in that gives him the wisdom to invest in those areas. So the skill is basically something that needs to be self-inflicted based on the interest that is created to do what he's supposed to do on a day-to-day job, based on the requirement of that particular job description. Sridhar, did I answer your question? Is Sridhar there? Hello? Am I audible?
Yeah, Hari, you are audible. You're loud and clear. I guess Sridhar has some internet.
Yeah. I heard you. But what I was trying to connect the points is this was an absolute excellent framework that you have displayed. But somewhere, when you ask the other question, some other question my other friend asked, Jitu asked, was talking about how do we really manage the set of people with all these centers. I think probably we need to connect the skills for various centers, right? I mean, if somebody
Absolutely,
not
absolutely.
really,
That's what I said. The skill is different in terms of what he's supposed to do. Now, based on these centers, you would be able to tickle the person to create that interest in order to develop that skill. Now, as I said, for example, let me give you a different example from our day-to-day work environment. Now, I'm sure that you all are HR professionals. Now, imagine that your competency is to, I don't know, your competency is to make sure that you recruit the right talent. Now, in order to recruit the right talent, you keep working on different resumes, you keep working on different kind of interactions with different people in order to finalize on certain individuals. Now, when you're doing this, all your thought process is based on you need to close that position based on the requirement that you have. You are not bothered about what kind of a person that person is in terms of a security guidance or what kind of a center he is in. Your aim is to close that position. Now, in order to close that position, you need to have certain skill in order to understand this is the JD that I have. These are this is a resume that I have. In order to finalize on this is where your skill comes in. From a transferring from a JD to a resume, and the resume, what he has done, to back to the job description. Now, this is a skill that you develop based on the interest that you see. Now, you would see probably an HR who's confused is this resume good enough for this post? Is this resume good enough for this post? Now, if every time he's actually, covering on his or depending on someone else to understand whether this is an issue, that's where he lacks the skill. That's the reason why a competency is actually linked to the kind of work that he needs to do. Now, probably it can be based on his interest, or two, there's no proper mentorship that he is able to understand the kind of competency that he needs to develop. So, any kind of person, let it be, if you understand his weak point or the kind of center that he is in, you would be able to tickle him in such a way that he would be able to learn and adapt to the skill, and he'll enhance or develop that particular skill in order to do that job right.
Okay. As a same person can be having more, like, according to you, I can be also money centered, I can be also work centered, right?
Correct.
So I cannot bucket. I mean, any individual cannot be bucketed in one particular center, right? I can
Not
be
really.
having all the other
All the
five
centers,
centers.
yes.
Yes.
You can
Yeah.
be have all the five centers. You can be money,
Correct.
you can be work, position, pleasure, and spouse center. But if you're putting in every single bucket, if you're a kind of person who's falling in every single bucket of this, your decision making process will happen very slow. You will start with probably your key center. If your key center is on a work, your first decision making process comes in a work like a work centered person. Then your next decision would
Maybe
be on
my
a position
centers.
center.
Yeah. Maybe my centers will be like differing priority wise. Maybe
Absolutely,
as a
absolutely.
person, I'll be first work centered, then I'm a spouse centered. I can have
Yes,
different ratings, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Because I was under the impression that you were talking about a personality can be groomed under one particular center only.
No, no, no. And that's why I
Okay.
said a position-centered person can be a money-centered person. A pleasure-centered can also be a money-centered, because the kind of locations that he wants to go into a different way. So everybody can be in almost all centers. But your decision-making process at that point of time based on your priority again. Now imagine if you're a spouse-centered person and you wanted to buy a car for yourself. Your decision-making process would be centered around your spouse. But at the same time, if you're going for a vacation, then you would be both on a pleasure centered and a spouse centered. You will take your kind of a pleasure. Okay, I want to stay in a five-star hotel. Where does my wife wanted to go? You will try to mix and match all the options.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. Bye.
Thank you, Sridhar. Any other questions from participants?
Okay. As there are no further questions, let's have a small mental activity. Now imagine, now today is your 75th birthday and there are 7 people sitting in that table along with you. It could be your friends, it could be your enemies, it could be Steve Jobs, it can be Bill Gates, it can be your departed, your living family members, anybody, kids and their kids, and they're all talking about your accomplishments in life. I'm talking about life and not just work alone. All the things that you wanted. Now, I would like you to think about this and do a mental activity. Say, what do you want each of them to say about you in that table? There are 7 people sitting there. So, what does each of these people needs to talk about you on your 75th birthday? What do you want each of them to say about your accomplishments? What is that one thing that you would say to them that would like to change? What is one thing they would say about you to make you sad? What is that one thing they would say about the kind of life you had? So just answer these questions. I can actually, Rupesh can actually put these questions in your forum or send it to you to your email address. But these are the kind of questions that actually would realize what kind of a person that you wanted to be in the long run. So at the end of on the 75th birthday, if you're still there and these are the kind of people sitting there and asking questions to you, what you have done in life, and that would kind of give you the idea of what kind of a center that is actually giving you the major area in your life, what kind of a centered person that you are, in order to understand and what gives you the most priority on. And you would also understand the kind of self-centered person that you are. Okay, so Rupesh, would you be kind enough to share this once I send these questions to you? Would you be able to put this
Absolutely,
into
yes,
other
Hari.
form?
Yeah, sure. I will share it to everybody and I'll send a response to you also.
Okay, I don't want the response. It's just for them to know in order to understand what kind of a person they are.
Sure.
So
I can do
now,
that.
sure. And there's one last story that I would like to share before we actually close on this is on the knowledge. Now, this is a story that I want to share about a boy who grew up in a forest along with his parents. Now, this boy's parents, his father is a woodcutter, his mother is a homemaker. So, this boy was born and brought up in the forest. Now, this boy, as he was growing up in the forest, just like Mowgli, he is able to talk to birds rather than the animals. There was lots of birds, different colored birds, different types of birds that usually has his nest near his house, and he used to talk to birds, and the birds talked back. One day, as he was playing deep inside the forest, he saw a few hunters who are actually coming to catch these birds. So the boy ran back as fast as he could, and he started talking to the birds in terms of, there's a hunter that is coming, so please escape. The birds started giving it around. The hunter is coming, please escape. The hunter is coming, and the birds were trying to pass it. So one bird to another, one bird to another, it started giving this response and started flying there. So the boy thought, okay, I have given the information, and he went back home. That evening, when he was coming out, he saw the truckload of birds actually going along with the hunter. And at the same time, the birds were saying, the hunter is coming, please escape. So, what I'm trying to say is the knowledge that can be shared needs to be actually put into practice. Until and unless you put into practice, there is nothing that anybody can do other than to keep it here with you and move away. At the same time, if you start putting this into practice, and you would see the kind of difference that you can actually bring into your day-to-day job. Now, with that, let's see a small video. I'm not really sure if you would be able to hear the audio through Zoom, but at the same time, let's see anyways. It's an interesting video.
Wonderful message, Hari. Wonderful message.
Thank you. So with that, I have come to the conclusion of this session. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions from the participants?
Even though there are no questions at this point of time, Rupesh has my phone number and email ID. You can always share the questions with them, and I would be more than happy to answer these questions.
I really don't have a problem if you share the email, your phone number and email it to them. They can actually write back to you. Since you are an author of 2 of the books, those who joined very late. Hari is author of 2 of the books, so Hari definitely can help you out in any of your issues, and he's kind of a veteran in the talent development area.
Can I put something in perspective?
Sure.
Go ahead, Jerry. Please, everybody, go ahead and ask questions.
No, this is nothing related to the presentation or nothing related to the topic he was covering. But that was an excellent thought, anyways. But I just wanted to ask a question to Hari. Has anybody made a connection between you and Saurav Ganguly?
No, not yet.
But of course, I think you might have to introspect on that because your voice is very similar to Saurav Ganguly's. So I would recommend all the participants here to actually take a cue on from the video which Rupesh should be sharing. For me, it looks like your voice is pretty similar to Saurav Ganguly's.
Well, thank you. That's an honor.
Thank you so much. So I am kind of logging off. I'm heading into another meeting. Thank you so much, Hari, for the perspective.
You're most welcome.
Any questions in specific? Okay, so Hari, thank you so much for taking time for us and for each participants to come up with a topic that is really thought-provoking. And I would say like this topic is actually the need of the hour because we are all now we are listening to kind of layoff. A lot of people actually lost their job, so that's the kind of situation currently going through. All of us is going through in this situation, COVID-19, and I think this is the time. We all should ask the questions that you have presented in the last slide, and this is the time we should really begin with the end in mind. So, thank you so much, Hari, for the presentation.
You're most welcome, Rashmi.
And I'd like to thank each participant for joining us. Thank you so much.